Okay, all right. Oh, microphone. Haha. That's right. That's right. Okay, let's see. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hope we're live. Let me go check the usual places that we need to check. Hopefully you can hear me. We are back in the studio, so we shouldn't have any issues like last time. Hopefully that's still the case. I'm just a little bit early. Joe and Kai are going to be coming in a few moments. We're going to be talking about iPhone 3. I'm super excited to see a little bit of a demo as well. And yeah, it's kind of like just something that we can keep. Give me 1 second. Let me. Uh, okay, I was gonna do a recording. That's fine. That's okay. I didn't want to do that. Let me make sure that I get the um, timestamps as well for people that didn't watch it or that cannot watch at the same time. We'll be going over the chapters and timestamps. Um, but welcome to the channel. If you have any questions, make sure to put them on the side. We're going to be going over the questions that have already been submitted. So if you have submitted a question already, make sure that don't submit the same question, just to kind of like keep the chat flowing. We're going to be talking about the top five ideas first, which is essentially RCS. So RCS came up a lot. So you guys asked a lot about that. Let me check my notes. We're going to be talking about the SDK or custom tools that are upcoming, hardware release, price. That's definitely something that's interesting for a lot of people. Market expansion and compatibility. That is another top request that people definitely wanted. And we're going to be talking about questions that kind of come through, throughout all of this. So hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully you're able to share it, and I will share a link, of course, if you want to pre-order after what you see. You've been looking, you've been thinking, hey, is this worth $3.99? Like, is this worth the money? Then I'll put a link here, and if you want to support the channel, I'd appreciate it if you use it. The link is going to go there. And actually, that I'm going to put it again because I think it has a wrong thing at the end. But yeah, if you think that it's a device that you want for yourself and you want to support the channel, then I would appreciate if you do that. And you kind of like do the purchase through my link. If not, that's okay. It's fine. I do what's best for you. Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this conversation with Kai and Joe. We have both of them today, so they're going to be talking about a lot of different things. I'll be posting some of these links right now on the Reddit, and starting in 5 minutes, we're going to have them here. So yeah, save your questions as you listen to the discussion, and if we miss anything, make sure that you put it there. iPhone 3 live stream with Joe and Kai today. So we have the first one joined. They are in the same room. I'm going to send them a private message. I'll bring you in 5. So yeah, I'm really excited to have them both and to have this conversation. I'm pretty sure they're also excited to answer some of your questions. It's going to be something that is just exciting for all of us to see a little bit more of the prototyping and like ideas that they have coming up. I'm gonna bring them in just a second, so I give them 5 so that they can get situated. And but I'm really excited about this conversation, guys. I think it's gonna be a great conversation. Um, so let me go over a few more things to send it to all of the places that we need to send it. The Discord, at everyone. Live stream happening now. I'm so excited. I think this is gonna be so good. Um, yeah, let me see. Put it here. Announcements. Ooh, that's a sound. I don't want a sound. Make sure that all of my things are on silent. Yeah, I don't want to. Okay. The Lightphone 3 live stream is starting at everyone. If you're not on the Discords yet and you want the link, I'll be putting it here as well. It's just a place where a lot of people decide to chat and just have a good time. And if that's something that interests you, there is a Lightphone Discord that I'll be inviting everybody to. And people just talk about different things, Lightphone and, et cetera, et cetera. All right. We are generate new link, copy, and I'll be sharing that link here. Boom, right there. All right. So, yep. I know some people just don't know about it. And 3 more minutes. We're gonna bring them in. If you guys have any questions, make sure to put them there. And yeah, we're gonna be getting started. Let me put it on the notes. So about 7 minutes. Conversation starts. And I'm gonna try to make sure that it is at 7 minutes so I can bring them on. And yeah, super excited. Lightphone 2 still here. Lightphone 3 soon to come. We got a couple seconds. Let's do it. 20 seconds, guys. So excited. And yeah, again, I'll be putting the link there if you're interested in pre-ordering. As you see the information coming out from this interview that we're gonna have. And if that's something that you want to do, I highly recommend that you do it, as soon as possible. Okay, we're live. There you go. We got Joe and Kai with us. Really excited to have them here. Can we test your mic? I couldn't hear you very well.
Hey, Jose, how are you?
Doing
Can you
pretty
hear
good.
me?
Doing pretty good.
Testing, testing. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can. A little bit of echo, but that's okay. There's two of you, so we understand that.
Thanks for inviting. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's get started with your give me 1 second. Let's get started with a couple questions, like the top questions. And let's we have 5 categories that kind of started with a lot of questions that came through. So let's just talk over those first, and then kind of like give us an intro, I guess. Kai, this is your first time on the channel. So welcome. But give us an intro of what you guys have been working on and why should people order the Lightphone 3?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, before that, I just want to say that, the whole team, Joe and I, Dan, David, Eileen, Lawrence, we're all reading the Reddit the last few years, and it's been really helpful. It's just reading about your stories, the good and bad. It's actually, kind of kept us going as well, and learning about the problems that you're having, even though we're not like replying every single post, but I just want to make sure you know that we are reading every post.
Yeah, and I would even say the surveys. I know Kai and I have gone through like thousands of survey responses. So, obviously we announced this new phone, and I feel like we really tried our best to address the feedback from both users who, were able to make the phone stick and have been using the Lightphone 2 as their daily driver, and people who really wanted to make the Lightphone 2 stick, but for whatever reason weren't able to. And
yeah, in a sense that the community designed this phone with us in a way, because we learned so much the last 5 years, the good and bad, and we had very intensive conversation internally whether or not we should do a Lightphone 3, and eventually decided that the goal is to encourage as many people as possible to break away from smartphone social media. So maybe we all agree that Lightphone 3 is the best way for us to do that.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity in that moment of, is there room? Does there need to be a Lightphone 3? We felt like there was a unique opportunity for a device like the Lightphone 3 that, the Lightphone 2, as we've said, we're still planning to support it, produce it, and we still think there's like a very real space in the phone landscape for that phone, but we felt like there was this more premium space, people that really wanted to ditch the smartphone, and we hope that the iPhone 3 can really prove to be that alternative to the smartphone for many more people.
I'm not trying to replace iPhone 2. It's just a different option that we think for a group of people might find it more reassuring without, we move away from e-ink. We could talk about it later, but we think the current design of iPhone 3 have a better chance to get more people to join us.
Yeah, no, I think I understand a lot of the ideas, and definitely we're going to talk about them. The first area that a lot of people are talking about, and when it comes to iPhone 3, is the cost, right? You guys are coming up with a different device, and it's a little bit more expensive. The MSRP, as far as you have set it on the website right now, it's discounted as of today at $399, but a lot of people got the shock factor, and it's like the number that has been, pretty much on every thread. It's not worth it. $800, yada, yada, yada. So talk to us about the price. Talk to us about, do you think it's going to get all the way up there? And what are some of the factors that can help keep that price low so that more people can find it accessible? Because as of July 15, the price will go up $100, which will make it less accessible than the price that is right now.
I would just preface, I feel like Kai has probably a really great answer about the price, but when we launched the iPhone 1, we had the exact same feedback. $100 for a phone that does nothing. We launched the iPhone 2, $299 for a phone that does very little. So, I almost wonder if the price was MSRP $399, if we would have had the same reaction. But, obviously we didn't just pull this number out of thin air,
Yeah, since day one, we've been trying to show and share how complex building a phone really is for individual companies. Back in the days when I was doing Motorola phones or Nokia phones, the team of 100 people, 200 people.
For one model.
Yeah, so doesn't mean that we couldn't do it. We did it, but the cost is not just a bomb. With $399, I think we don't really make money. The material cost versus the NRE cost to our suppliers. NRE cost, meaning that we hire somewhere from 20 to 50 people, acoustic engineers, electrical engineers, plastic, tooling, managing the sourcing for us. I think we already paid up to 1.5 million for the NRE cost. And we got more development costs coming in, and not just on the manufacturing side. We have software team that does the entire OS and the tools and the future tools. We also, I think.
Yeah, it's not stock Android to that point, where a different Android phone, the hardware cost, and then they deliver this kind of Android. We're constantly investing.
Yeah, the cost is not being subsided or compensated by carriers or advertisement revenue. The price is just how the cost of us making the phone, keeping it alive, pushing out updates every other month, hopefully sooner. It is to me, it's an honest pricing, because there's nothing there that's not related to building a iPhone 3. So obviously you could argue that you could buy a $50 phone, $100 phone from Amazon or Alibaba, whatever the website that you use. At the same time, I think if that works for you, it's awesome. You don't need to buy an iPhone. But what we're trying to do is a bit different. We build a phone, hardware, software from scratch. We use all the custom parts. For example, display. We spent a year and a half going through all type of display, Sony, Sharp, non-reflective, no backlighting. We back and forth with all the suppliers trying to find the best one that fit the size that we wanted. The non-reflective or no lighting display that I think some people mentioned it. those are great. We tried it, but the size, they focus on bigger size, and the smaller size of those modules are either low resolution or the frame rate is really low.
And I would even add aesthetically, it was not there either. Like when the backlight was off, it wasn't as beautiful as the e-ink was. But then when the light was on, it felt just like a smartphone. So we, ultimately went our own way.
Well, we look at the bigger e-ink, the next generation e-ink display as well. The fresh rate is the same. I don't think that changed that much. And given that we already have iPhone 2, we feel like it's the best direction for us to offer something that's not e-ink display.
Yeah. And that required us working with the supplier, investing a lot of upfront costs to make an exclusive screen for the iPhone 3 that isn't on the open market.
The current screen side, current display is supplied by LG.
Yeah.
And we customize the flex, the coatings, the colors, just to make it unique for the form factors, the dimension that we wanted. That cost us, $500,000 as well. So it's
and that wasn't even in the other.
You just say it like nonchalantly, and I appreciate that you are very open about this process with a lot of us, because a lot of people think, oh, you just grab the parts, you put them together, you put some custom software, and then you sell it for like $299, and then like you're good, you're raking in the money, right? But the reality is that you are trying to be meticulous about the company and try to be as upfront as you can. Of course, we have talked about it with Joe in the past that you cannot disclose some things just because of investors, right? And all of those things. But you did say LG provides the screen. Is that the e-ink or the current, the OLED one?
The new screen that we're making for the iPhone 3 is made by LG.
Yeah, it was an older, not older, but it was the display that they don't use on the current phone, because the existing phone are bigger and no one's really looking at the small screen. So we had a hard time finding the right display as well. But we eventually, Foxconn, our partners, have helped us find the display, and we had a conversation on what's how much we could customize the display and the price, negotiated back and forth. And we tried the display with just a PCB model connect to it, making sure the frame rate
I think we have one of those in the process blog, a photo of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we could go in a lot of depth about the screen because of the change, but I think just to kind of fully loop on the price, there's something that's maybe not obvious, is that a lot of our premium tools do leverage, the very best of technology, whether that's here, Rev AI, or even Google Places. And, we cover the cost as light ongoing for those. We are not hoping to sell you a new phone in the near future at all, where, other companies are assuming in their price that okay, they buy this phone and we'll sell them a new one next year and a new one the next year. So, we're, looking at this MSRP spread out over hopefully a 3, 4, 5, 6+ year time frame. And that's really, a sort of different thing. And then I think also we do want to grow. I think, to date, we've been so grateful to sustain operations through the pandemic, which was incredibly hard for a hardware company. But we've been basically, remaining this really small team. And we're hoping that by charging a more realistic number, that we can actually grow and deliver on more features on the software side with the dashboard and some of these longer term plans. And so, and us, it feels like a very realistic, transparent number. And, if we get a scale that, is a significant jump up from what we've seen, there's a good chance we might be able to bring the price down in other ways. But I think, consumers are so used to the price being bundled in with their carrier that, there is some sticker shock. I mean, I think Kai and I would love to charge less, but it would just be unrealistic and, probably jeopardize our long-term growth plans.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. That's a good answer, and I mean, again, a lot of people have had concerns about that, and what I tell them is like, well, your best chance to get it at the best price is right now. So,
Well, that's
you know,
true. And I would just also add, like, obviously costs are a hard thing to justify, but like if this phone is really going to give you back hours of your life for years of your life, that cost might very well justify it, especially when you compare it to things like a digital detox retreat, therapy, these other kinds of things that maybe don't help with finding a long-term balance. Like the light phone's not just go away for one beautiful week off the grid and then you're right back to your unbalanced tech life.
right.
It's really trying to find a sustainable long term. And for what it's worth, a lot of users get significantly cheaper phone plans with the light phone, as I'm sure you can attest, Jose. So
I can attest. Yes.
there was like a lot of offsetting in that regard. And we plan to offer an insurance plan for the Light Phone 3 so that, you can sort of feel some peace of mind with that, as well as we do offer the payment installations that we've always offered.
iPhone 2 is what, 4 years now, 5 years now.
5 years. Yeah.
In
Right,
September.
so iPhone 3, the whole team and our manufacturing suppliers all in agreement that we want to make this last more than 5 years. If we don't need to upgrade, what's the point of upgrading? And that's part of the reason why we start a company. Like, why upgrading your phone every 6 months? For what reasons? Nothing really that groundbreaking. Anyway, that's part of a reason how you justify the cost of iPhone 3.
I think we could move on from, but I will say, like, I do think it's probably an interesting thing we want to address more head on in marketing. But, we're not too discouraged by the comments about the price because I think, it's just an initial reaction. And, people think, oh my God, they're probably just using a stock. If they knew what our real costs were, and I think that's where it's our job to sort of lean in and educate in that way.
Absolutely. No, and a lot of people have, had a conversation about this, but they will continue. All right, let's move into an idea, right? We have talked about this before, and you guys have, but now it's a little bit more poignant. It's a little bit more important because Apple just announced a few weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, I think, that they're adopting RCS, right? So rich communication services, and of course, WhatsApp has always been in the conversation, Signal, apps like that. Here we have a user. Please, RCS, right? Like, we have Lempan essentially summarizing. That's one question that came along through all of the Reddit threads and all of the things. What are your thoughts about possibilities of including RCS, WhatsApp, Signal, kind of like instant messengers into the Light Phone 3?
I would say that our position hasn't changed. We're still open to providing the communication utility of text and calls. Right now it's limited to SMS and MMS, but we've always been open to other platforms, whether that's RCS, Signal, WhatsApp. I would say at this point, we can't guarantee any of them, but we're exploring all of them and interested in all of them. And whether that's a collaboration with a platform like Beeper that might be able to bundle a couple of platforms, or more native collaboration with Signal or Telegram, and then, a more universal solution like RCS. But
we've been talking to Beeper since 2022.
We met him at YC,
before Eric started the whole Beeper platform, and we've been trying to see how much resource or time needed for us to integrate Beeper service. So that's definitely option. The RCS, it's new for us, just to be honest with you. And the RCS, my understanding, require Google's GMS certification, which we did not have with Light Phone 2. There might be, we have investors and partners that could help us try to get Google's GMS. I think Google implemented a new policy that they have a certain screen size phones. If you're below that screen size, they would not proceed with the certification. There might be exceptions or things we could do to, if we decided that aligned with our missions and our principles, we could try to get certification and have that enabled. But at the moment, we'll explore different venue, different channels to see what's possible.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like
other ones,
anything.
like David and I were talking about Twilio as an option to maybe get RCS. So there is potential ways outside of GMS. I guess at this point, it's probably not worth us going into too many details, other than that it's on our radar.
Yeah.
Hardware wise, we feel like we can probably support it, but we would hate to guarantee it and not be able to deliver it. So for the initial launch, I think it's probably, we're just really only able to guarantee the same SMS, MMS support, but RCS interests us because image quality wouldn't be compressed by carriers in the same way. iMessage integration, we've always known that's been a big hurdle for iPhone users. So we totally understand. I guess that's, we get it. And as users ourselves, we want that. I have a lot of friends on iMessage and around the world, and it'd be great if it was easier to communicate with them.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the priority, WhatsApp, and ability to allow more user outside of the community outside of US to have a way to text.
Not for nothing, we've also even explored what our own platform might look like. As if we don't want to rely on this Meta owned or Russia owned or these other platforms, like maybe there's our own light branded solution, which isn't off the table, but obviously that's an ambitious project on top of everything else. So these are the kinds of things we're always kind of weighing, and just something to kind of keep in mind throughout this whole live stream is that, like our previous crowdfunding campaigns, we're so looking forward to using these early pre-orders to really learn and help us prioritize what makes the most sense of our small development team, how we should allocate those resources.
I guess before we go on the next question, last month we went to the supplier's site and built 2 phones manually with all the components, be CNC, the PCBA, and the display. And we got 2 phones with us. That's what we use to on the videos and images.
Looks amazing.
That looks huge compared. Yeah, now that's more.
So this is the display we're talking about with the matte coating OLED display. It's just as fast as
that was so fast. I'm not gonna lie, that was so fast. Like my brain is like Light Phone 2 right now, and when you click that phone and it just went to it, I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so massive.
It's just as fast as your smartphone, but it does not reflect light like your smartphone.
And this actually isn't the final glass. This is some tests that we've been doing along the way.
Yeah, the same coating that we're gonna use on the real product. And we have the speaker grill here. Underneath the speaker grill, there's a big acoustic box, so the sound comes out better. It has aluminum frame throughout. The whole frame is aluminum, as well as
brightness will be a little better.
As well as the buttons. Those are aluminum buttons as well. And this is the shutter buttons, the 2-step shutter buttons that 1 step to focus, 2nd step take photos. The fingerprint sensor was embedded into the power key. The color is off right now, it's prototype, but eventually hopefully will be seamless. And that's where you unlock the phone. The back of the phone, this piece, the plastic, is the only plastic parts other than the internal PCBA.
Well, the speaker grill and that shit.
So those plastic are sourced from Sony's CD and DVDs that they don't use. They recycle it, make into a plastic resin. This part,
the name of it, it's like Soplar, I think.
Soplas, I think. We'll share that down the road.
It's in the tech spec as well.
The top part is this glass. That's the 50 megapixel camera with OIT. I think it's OIT. It's optical imaging, OIS. Stabilizer. It's a mechanical feature, not a software stabilizer.
So we hope the video will be not nauseating.
Yeah. Sorry, my hand's sore. The flashlight here can be turned on through the wheel here. You click, and then you could turn on the flashlight. You could turn the wheel to change the brightness quickly, and that's something that I think I personally really like, because I just don't like the phones to decide what brightness that I
And
want to be
actually,
in.
like a cool story about the wheels sort of origin was when we were testing memory and pixel displays, the Sharp technology. The module we had, was this big screen with thing, and it actually had a wheel to turn the brightness all the way on and off. And turning it on and off was this kind of magical experience when you like have the wheel and the brightness goes. And we figured, since we were abandoning e-ink, and we love that you can just walk right outside with the Light Phone 2 and it's completely visible. So we like the idea that you can kind of have this finite control over the screen brightness. And actually, when you bring the brightness down, the wheel doesn't work in the current version. It does really feel like an e-ink screen if you keep the OLED pretty low.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of amazing.
I mean, people down the road will, based on the feedback we're gathering from the community, we could make the wheel into different optional functions you could change through the settings. It could be, I don't know, the volume, if that's what everyone wants.
We have volume, but we've thought like zooming, scrolling, or even just like shortcuts and other things that might make sense in the camera. Maybe it's the brightness. There's so many things, and we've actually been collecting the feedback that some of the users have shared just organically, like maybe the wheel could do this, maybe the wheel could do that. So a lot of things that we put in the Light Phone, we did in this kind of future-proof mentality. Like, we have an NFC, we have this wheel, we don't exactly know how we're going to use them fully. We have this one idea, but we love the idea that there's these tangible things that can be customized, because I think a physical button as a shortcut, being able to open the camera by just pressing the shutter button and not even opening your phone, that's awesome. Being able to turn the flashlight on with like a physical button,
we really like buttons, so we spend a lot of time designing the buttons and the shape.
They're not in their like most final form. We're still working on the mechanics.
So we spend a lot of time like deciding the curvature of the button so it feels most natural. It's aluminum, so we can CNC it to a different curve, different what's the word, radius we want. USB-C. You could use the USB-C.
That's right.
Charge as well as listen to your headphones. You will need a converter, adapter, dongle, I guess, if you want to use the 3.5
but
headphones.
We expect to provide or offer one of those, a Light branded one, ideally, or at least have one available in our shop.
I guess last thing is the battery is holding down by the 4 screws. We want the screw to be exposed, so user are able to replace the battery themselves. Not, you don't have to do it like, every day, but if your battery have problems, easy to replace, you can replace every day if you want to, but just the easy access to the battery, because we know that the battery is the first components to die in your phone, and if there's no way to change the battery, your phone basically died.
Yeah.
So in order to prolong the life cycle of your phone, we make a lot of components interchangeable. Battery is one. USB-C is held together with a flex to the PCBA. So if your USB-C, for some reason that you
it doesn't break the whole PCB,
damaged it, you could replace the USB-C instead of rather than scrap whole PCB in the phone. What else? Buttons as well.
Screen's a little bit easier to replace.
Screen is easier to replace with the flex connect to the PCBA just underneath the display.
And we're not sure that these will all be user repairable, or if it will be something that Light has to service. But I think, the battery is probably one instance, but also we'd also offer battery replacement if someone like, sorry, Mom, my mom wanted to get her battery replaced. I think she'd be more comfortable sending it in. But I think most people probably savvy enough on here would be more than comfortable. And, we'd even consider like, how can we maybe work with iFixit or something along those lines?
Just the texting. I think a lot of people really curious about this.
That's amazing. That's
I
amazing.
just the same speed as what we used to with the smartphone and
Yeah.
OLED.
A few caveats about the OS that you're seeing. It's really just a prototype app. So that's not the final keyboard. We built this with a few kind of goals. One was to test our software hypothesis that the newest React Native we'd be using with the exact chipset we'd be using, Qualcomm.
Snapdragon Gen 4.
Thank you. With, like, full speed and, kind of understanding how that architecture would work. We also wanted to test the form factor to make sure that texting really felt good. We've done obviously paper iterations forever, but to have it on the screen with some feedback, and then, obviously so that we could showcase the tool. So there's actually just like a slideshow of UX designs, but none of them are actually interactive. Kai is there texting, but it can't send a text yet. So it's really a rudimentary app. And since launching, we've now kind of stepped back on the Light OS and we're doing the larger architecting to make it possible so that the Light OS can go forward and support both devices. It's not going to be two different operating systems. Going forward, you'll get one Light OS update that will actually reflect both the Light Phone 2 and the Light Phone 3. And just to kind of like beat it to the ground, we plan to support the Light Phone 2 ongoing. So if there's new features that we roll out and there's no technical limitation as to why the Light Phone 2 can't also support it, we'd love to introduce that to both devices. There may be instances that maybe the processor isn't powerful enough on the Light Phone 2, the hard drive space, obviously there's no camera. These kind of things are limited to the Light Phone 3, but there's not like a planned obsolescence with the feature set. And so we're really happy that, we can kind of keep that Light OS nomenclature. We don't have to build two complete different operating systems, but there is a lot of plumbing to be done, so to speak, over the next, 2 to 3 months to really make it so that we can move full speed on bringing the Light OS in. It's definitely not plug and play in that regard. We're upgrading to the latest Android, the latest React Native. So we think, they'll bring a lot of upgrades across the board. And working with Foxconn, our confidence is really high on all things GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. So really feeling good about that. I don't know if it makes sense now to talk about the Light OS in terms of more short-term things. I know the Light Phone 3 is the big excitement, so we could stay there too if that makes more sense.
No, that makes sense. There are two more topics I'd like to talk about that came pretty frequently on and they're related to Light OS, so you can answer for both. And there's kind of like tools and things like that people really need. And I know you're listening, but kind of give us your kind of like ideas. So first thing is if you can touch on the SDK. So when is the SDK coming? A lot of people ask that. The other one is 2FA. So, as Arda says here, 2FA is necessary for many jobs. And the last one, you probably have heard it in the past. I'm just trying to find if somebody said it because somebody always says it.
Spotify or Uber?
You know it, Joe. So tell us a little bit more about where are you guys on those three things, because they affect both the Light Phone 2 and the Light Phone 3. So which one?
Well, 2FA, it's something that we wanted to do. It's on the roadmap. So it's the same answer to those tools that we wanted to do, WhatsApp, Signal, Beeper. So it's on the roadmap. We just got to explore and prioritize based on the resource we get. And the more pre-orders we receive, the more resource we have. That's just the reality of what we do.
And I would say, like we always have, these surveys have kind of been our North Star for a lot of that prioritization. And we have asked about 2FA, ticketing, and some of these other things. And, to date, they've actually always fallen kind of lower on the general user mass. Obviously, we see the utility and we don't think that having 2FA is anti to the ethos of the Light Phone, as we don't with the potential rideshare collaboration or expanding our messaging, but it's really about our limited resources and providing the most value to the most users and in what order.
Same goes to the SDK. I mean, I think we aligned our team So line that's something we wanted to do, open up the OS, Light OS, so everyone could create tools, even though it might not be Light approved, not our principle, but we want to create environments that for that to happen, but it's not on the priority list, unfortunately. But we do, I think we align on that.
There's a lot of nuance with the SDK. I think when we initially said we want to do an SDK, we actually did work with a lot of users, and I think everyone actually had a different idea of what that would mean from light side and each individual user. So I think it's kind of a hard blanket term, like, will there be an SDK? It's like, we have an idea of what we think maybe that might look like, and it's kind of limited in its use, and other people sort of maybe had a different understanding. So it's on our radar, but I think, there's a lot of nuance in them, but realistically, I would say SDK is probably lower than those tools that we talk about.
And on Spotify and Rideshare, I think we have more progress on those two fronts. So this is public information, but Lyft co-founder John Zimmer is our investor, and we've been talking to John about and hopefully getting Lyft support to enable a rideshare tool on iPhone 2 and 3, and that's ongoing. We still couldn't promise or commit a time frame, but we have more progress there. Same goes to Spotify. We've been talking to Spotify for quite some time. Last time we chatted with Spotify for iPhone 2 was three and a half years ago.
Had so many conversations with different teams. There was a light phone user at Spotify that tried really hard.
The community thing, the voting
going on. Not ignored, but I think the last reaction we got was that we were too small, and I think they were afraid of how much work it would take to support us, but we've done a lot of...
Yeah, it's understandable. They wanted to see, I don't think they maintain their third-party API
like the
anymore.
One that people have referenced.
But there are options on how can we enable Spotify. Just playlist, not like the browsing, not the discovering, just the playlist. There are options, and we will explore those options to make it easier.
And there's also the possibility of other potential streaming, always done obviously with this light intentional OS, but like Spotify is one thing, but there's a lot of internet radio that kind of falls into a podcast. So like, I know Spotify is the one that people say the most, but like, we haven't been just Spotify or nothing. We're kind of reminded to all things.
And our collaboration with PG Land, I think that helps as well, helps with our credibilities and awareness to push those collaborations.
Good point.
So it's been helpful.
Thanks for that. I think it really, really helps. Let's talk Light Phone 2, because I know a lot of people, then we're going to a full demo or whatever you guys can show us into the Light Phone 3, of course. But there was one more topic after. So we're going to go Light Phone 2, July update. I know you guys are excited about that. Then we're going to go to the idea of compatibility. What have you guys been able to work on that? It's going to be only one model. What are some of those unlocked things? And we can go into Canada right there. And then we'll try to see what other threats are coming in here in the comments. So let's start with July update. What's coming up soon for Light in the immediate future, as you guys prepare for more pre-orders, of course, but also for the Light Phone 2.
Yeah, it will be pretty short and sweet, but just to keep our steadfast support of Light Phone 2 obvious, I just wanted to point out that we do have a Light OS update coming, as well as a firmware update coming for the Light Phone 2. The Light OS update has a few things. One is that our directions tool, we've upgraded the backend SDK. There's actually no real user noticeable differences in this, but it will, there's a couple of edge cases where it will work smoother with here. And that was an inevitable thing we had to do. So that work will be included in it. We've worked on the volume in the music tool a lot, as well as the call connected screen. And so it's actually going to use a different volume bar that looks much more like how the music or podcast would go across. And there's a lot more steps to the volume control than there previously was. I think it was maybe 7 or 8 steps before with the dots. And now I think it's closer to 20 steps across the spectrum. And those actually match the system level settings. And so there's a lot less chances of potential mismatch audio or where you hear it jump really low or louder. But a big part of that has been trying to improve the way that Bluetooth volume control translates to the device. And so jumping a little bit ahead, but the firmware update that will be coming, and it might come shortly after the LightOS update, will include a big 2 updates to the GPS. I don't think it's going to be like night and day difference, but it's definitely proven to be more quick initial grabbing of the GPS, as well as just a little bit more reliable, and it uses a little bit more of the AGPS assisted network stuff, and then the Bluetooth call connected. So on some Bluetooth headphones that don't have their own volume, they're currently the device and the headphones, there's a kind of discrepancy, and it wasn't changing the volume. So it would either be too loud or too quiet for some users' preferences. And so hopefully with this new firmware update, and once the LightOS update is out, those should be pretty improved. And we're really happy about that because, those are some like core performance things that we would just really love to get really stable.
Yeah, the GPS was really annoying to us a long time. Like, I think this update, at least from the test that we've been going through, it gets the GPS location pretty quickly, significantly faster. But it really depends on where you are, and we've been looking into this issue for a while now, and hopefully this will make a difference.
And yeah, for Lightphone 3, I'd say like from the get-go, that's something we've been very adamant about wanting to work as absolutely best as it can, on par with what you'd expect from top-tier flagship smartphones. And we're confident Foxconn can help us deliver. One thing I'll add about future LightOS updates, so it's not going to be a part of this, but in going into Lightphone 3, we've actually improved some of our internal logging. That is, like when Kai and I are on beta builds in the team, there's a lot more logs being sent to the developers. And in doing that, we're actually thinking about introducing that to the larger user base, obviously with a consent form. And being really transparent about what things we're collecting. It's not user identifiable, but as everyone recalls, we did have some issues with the ringer and some of these really outlier bugs that we haven't been able to replicate, and we've been racking our brains trying to get to the bottom of. We think by introducing this log, and if users are, to some degree, a good amount of our users are willing to sign on, I think it can help us solve some bugs that maybe we aren't even aware of or able to articulate what's happening because we're just too small of an internal sample size. So that's something that for Lightphone 3, our development process, we're really excited to upgrade and hopefully make us more efficient, but we'd like to bring that to Lightphone 2 so that as we start to split our dev team between the 2 devices, everyone's running as efficiently as possible. We're not just kind of like looking for needles in a haystack. One other thing I should mention is we'll probably have another firmware update in relation to TELUS. It's not really going to bring anything other than a few minor tweaks to make it certified in Canada around emergency phone number handling. It's all actually Qualcomm level stuff. There's one final piece that's being worked on. So we're still aiming for this end of July, but it's kind of in Qualcomm and TELUS's boat on whether or not we'll hit that. But we've been working and prepared and so beyond
frustrating for us as well for 2 years, going back and forth.
One more month
with TELUS, and obviously it's standard process for every carriers to go through their unique testing process with their assigned lab that qualify a device before they introduce to the network. That's standard. And we'll cover that cost, but that's not cheap for each carrier. So obviously, we're not going to have enough resource to cover every single carrier in the world. Some carrier might not need certification. but most of them do. So like, if you buy a phone somewhere, I don't know, online, and they didn't go through carrier certification, the phone will not work with any carrier, even though the bandwidth
or it might,
matches.
it's like, but some features might not, maybe like cell calls will work, but
Right.
not the hotspot. We've seen all these kind of.
So
Tell
TELUS,
them get kicked out of the network, which is
Yeah,
another
exactly.
thing that happens.
and TELUS in particular, I mean, we've been going back and forth with them for quite some time. They really like what we're doing, and they wanted to introduce that through the network. It's just a few testing items that just hasn't been maintained by Qualcomm, because that's just outside our control. So the suppliers of ours and us and Qualcomm and TELUS, just this loop of going back and forth. It's been a while.
But it's slow, unfortunately. As you can imagine, these teams are huge, and they arrange a call next week. Okay, then we'll follow up the following week and the following week. Where as our little nimble team, we're like, come on, tomorrow. So
yeah,
it's frustrating when we feel throttled by them. But
it takes time, but rest assured that that's one of the priorities.
Last thing, you mentioned that the GPS firmware is going to be also updated. I remember you guys said that there will be major improvements when it comes to directions tool as a result of that.
I mean, I want to set expectations realistic. It feels pretty major to Kai and I, but like, it's an improvement, definitely an improvement. But like, I don't know if it's going to be like a night or day difference, but I've been noticing a huge improvement in my usage, especially with that first connection. And once you get the phone primed, it's really good at keeping it primed.
Yeah. I mean, we've been testing it for the last few months. The priming, meaning that getting the GPS locked the first time, really improved. But getting that first, but it really depends on where you are. Sometimes you get really fast connections, sometimes you don't, and that's our problem. I think that's
as you can see, we're in a big metal hangar right now, our office, the new lab building, and GPS is hard to get, even on some people's iPhones here. And that's constantly using Wi-Fi and all these things. So.
Yeah, but the depends on how you use it. Step-by-step direction really helps. Me personally, I've been using step-by-step all these years. But I understand the navigation is not the best. Hopefully, we wanted to see what's the feedback when we release the update and see what's working, what's not.
Yeah, and thinking about the Lite 2 versus Lite 3, obviously we plan to support the exact same tools. I think 2 examples, or maybe 3, where like things will be slightly different on Lite Phone 3. Is that we do think there's an opportunity to improve the user experience, the interface of the directions tool, because it's no longer limited to e-ink and we have a little bit more screen real estate. We'd like to focus more on a map-centric tool than the current one that kind of centers around the arrows and the list of things. And so I think that's going to provide a huge utility bump that unfortunately won't be possible to translate to Lite Phone 2. And then something like music, that now we have a 128 gigabyte hard drive versus an 8 gigabyte hard drive of the Lite Phone 2. You're going to be able to have a much larger music library. So instead of this small single playlist, I think it's going to make sense that we'd allow sorting and organizing by artist and album and maybe even playlist. Not sure if that will be 100% available on day one, but just so people understand where our thinking's at. And then obviously, as you've seen, texting happens portrait mode now. And I think that's a huge welcome upgrade.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Show us what's up. Like, show us everything that you can show us. I think people want to see it in action. I know there are some caveats, and you're still developing. But
realistically, as I said,
let me put you on the big screen so people can see it. Give me a second.
So we're really just using a very prototype app right now. So these tools are fixed. We can't even customize them. But you can see, the scrolling speed. It's a little bit hard to do this upside down, I'm not going to lie. But right now, if I click in any tool, it's just literally a slideshow. So I'm just basically sliding through different screens, and these are the screens you might recognize from some of the photos or videos that we shot. But they're not just for that sake. It's for us to start to work on the design system, the grid, the font sizes. That's one point, is that we actually want people to be able to customize the font size for different moments of the screen. Because I know for the Light Phone 2, especially for some of our, a little bit older users, that was an issue with it being too small. So hopefully we have more flexibility there. But this is just like an overview of some of those. I think probably some more side-by would be helpful.
That would be great.
So I'm trying to keep the depth the same from the camera, so it's realistic. But as you can see from the front, it got a little bit taller and definitely a little bit wider, but there's still significantly more screen real estate. The bezels on the top and bottom are a little bit smaller, and on the side, they're almost very, very minimal. Yes, it did get a little bit thicker. Maybe how's the best way to show this?
But that's better for battery life. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure people are curious about the battery life. It's way too early for us to give any precise estimates because it's not running our exact stripped down OS and Android, and there's still so much room for optimization. It's not connecting to real cell towers, but we've done a lot of testing with this chipset on other devices using the tools that we plan to support, and we feel really confident that should get through a day to a day and a half of use, maybe even much more. Some of those were accounting for 3 hours of streaming or this or that. But
there's always caveat. I mean, we that's why we're not trying to commit to a battery. We can estimate it. That's what we did with the factories. We assuming the activities, which activities consume how many powers, and we assume hours of each activities and come up with estimation. Right now, it's anywhere from 48 to 36 hours. But the real use case depends on your signal strength, might be different.
We're assuming that it's going to be less than that in actual use. So conservatively, we're saying we want it to get through a day, as I'm sure everyone wants. And we've also been exploring, is there ways that, because the battery is removable, that we could make accessories with extended batteries or other things down the road. So giving ourselves flexibility there.
You could replace the thicker battery if you know that you're going to be on the phone for an hour or two. It just, it will be a bit bulky on the battery part. You can replace it with a thicker one. So it's integrated to the phone. You just replace the battery door, and you have a thicker battery. It's not the best looking if you do that, but it will give you enough battery.
If someone wants that utility above the aesthetic, that's, obviously something we'd want to support. Something we haven't mentioned is that I know some people have asked about accessories for the Light Phone 3. We definitely plan to offer a case, if not multiple cases, a screen protector, and maybe some other accessories like a dongle and these other things. And so as those get developed throughout the coming months, before we collect everyone's address who's pre-ordered, we'd offer them the opportunity to add the insurance, any of these accessories that we make available. But one opportunity that I actually haven't heard much speculation about is, we think it could be really cool to have different material, color, screws and back places. At different points, our 3D printer, we ran out of black, and I had a 3D print with a yellow back, and it started to really grow on me. And we can start to imagine, is there ceramic or maybe a bamboo or like textured or fabric. We did some tests with pockets on the back where you could slip a credit card in. It's a little tricky with the camera being right there; it just barely fits up to it. But, there's a lot of potential with this. We could make a back with a lanyard if that's what you really wanted, or collaborations, whether that's a charity or other brands that are aligned. So that's, one kind of really cool customizational angle. Right now, we're only tentatively planning on black, but I think, maybe next year or sometime down the road, we might be interested in colors. But I think for us, simplifying our forecasting with this one global model and one color really is going to help us streamline and try to stay in stock as much as possible. And I guess to talk about the compatibility, I think that was one thing that we felt really hindered the Light Phone 2, especially in like a more professional adoption, was the ability to travel internationally and maintain the same phone. And because this was just so small, we were limited on how many antennas we could fit well. So the bigger size, and then obviously working with Foxconn, they're just really great. You can see all these little antennas embedded in the case throughout. And so we were able to fit so many more bands, both 4G and 5G. And so we're really hopeful that this should work in much more regions of the world.
Yeah, we squeeze most of the antenna, 4G, 5G bandwidth into the phone.
It was a challenge for them too. Like
yeah,
it wasn't
back
like
and forth for a few months getting that into the phone. But we still need to caveat this that a lot of those carrier certification need to be finished before you work with certain carrier, say in Japan, or I don't know, in China,
Australia, Telstra, for instance. We want it to work there, but we can't guarantee it until we can confirm with someone there. Technically, the phone should be capable, but we don't lock the phone to any carriers, but unfortunately carriers lock their network to phones.
And we did our best. Our team did the best to create a list of compatibility, which is what you saw on the website. And we, for those that we feel confident that will work, we say it worked. However, if for some reason it doesn't, you always have the opportunity to return for
especially if we claim that carrier. There's carriers that we don't claim that are probably going to work. We tried to pull the most popular carriers in any region, but we didn't pull like all 24 carriers for every single region, for instance. So we were a little conservative, as we've always been, because we're a small team. We don't have 1,000 people roaming around the world testing this on our behalf. But we are going to work with a lot of people around the world to test this as much as we can.
Right. I was just out of the country and I used the Light Phone 2 on the network Claro in Nicaragua and also Colby in Costa Rica. I know Colby you guys have tested, but I just went to my country of origin and I was able to use the North American version. I know you guys don't have that testing, but now that is going to be maybe like this is the enticing thing that we will not have to test a international and North American. Now just having one version is like, okay, I can get it to my country. I can test all the things that I can test. And maybe I can report feedback back to you guys to be like, okay, it's not just me, maybe also my friend, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah. And I mean, we totally get it. We had some, really high profile celebrities, musicians that are touring the world, and they wanted so badly to make the Light Phone 2 work. And that was such a disappointment that because of this small and 2 model needed, it really was such a pain point.
And the reports and feedback from everyone outside the US, if you try a different carrier, it works, doesn't work, please let us know. It's helpful to crowdsource those information so that we could change the compatibility.
And that's why we've asked on surveys in the past, with the Light Phone 2, what carrier do you use? Have you found it to be reliable to your expectations and needs?
No. Do you have any extra? I mean, do you have we saw a typing prototype, right? So we saw that. Camera, can you talk to us about when can we expect some ideas behind that? I mean, I assumed you guys haven't customized the kind of like what can you share some of that sensor or
we customize the sensor. I mean, its spec is on the website, I think, but we customize the whole camera with the suppliers so that
the processing mostly.
First of all, like the OIS module, it wasn't no one's using that on non-smartphone. Those features, the mechanical features, only commonly used in high-end smartphone. So we had to customize a camera with that module for Light Phone only, because no one else is using the OIS module in non-smartphone. So we are kind of the first one. The feature phone, flip phone back in the days, or the latest flip phone, I don't know. I mean, I'll guarantee this doesn't have the OIS feature building. And the rope, we're building our EVT. That was the first engineering and verification build. EVT build in July. That's the first build with building hundreds of phones to verify our design, verify software, and kick off software development, real OS and tool, migrating from iPhone 2. The second build is scheduled around October, which is we call DVT, Development Verification Build, I think,
Yes.
Design Verification Build. So that's the build we will start testing tuning camera. Image tuning is a big task for any phone. I mean, other companies spend millions just to tune their image. For us, we're not trying to be the best camera out there. We're trying to
all these like features of HDR and all these things that we're not going to support, face tracking and those kinds of things. We're making a much more simple camera.
Yeah, so the cost is lower for us. The process might be shorter, but it's still going to be, I think, roughly 3 to 5 months before we have something that we could share. So, I think around October timeframe, that's when we'll start doing image tuning, and that's when we could show the image. At the moment, I think a lot of details are TBD, but the camera will be triggered by the shutter buttons, 2-step shot buttons. You could only take photos sideways, but just like
you could take it vertical, but you still use the
that,
button, like a real camera.
So that's how you take photos, not on the display.
We don't want you holding it and tapping like a smartphone.
So it's like a point-and-shoot camera. It will be has color. So when you trigger camera tool, the screen will bring up colors.
The viewfinder, you know where you're seeing, and actually the size of the viewfinder is more like a point-and-shoot camera. Smartphones are big at 16:9, and I think that will help make it like feel more like a camera. That's something you take the photo and you review the photo later. You're not trying to get you out of the moment. You're not taking the photo and posting it on social media right away and then waiting for some feedback.
It's more about documenting when you need it, not sharing, not editing, commenting or liking, right? So we'll make sure our final design eliminate all the distraction, but just keep the most pure camera function, documenting. You could do video, you could do image as well. The camera is not working on this phone, so I cannot show you. But
actually, the only things that are working are the power button and the volume buttons. This is the very first sample. Actually, with software updates, some of those will start working on these, I believe. But
so we still got a long way to go, 6 to 7 months. That's our estimation.
Well, January,
from now. So shipping in January is what we targeted to do. If there's delayed, we'll let people know. But the original internal plan was December. We try to be conservative, says publicly December. Publicly we're trying to say January, so we don't want to overpromise.
Understood.
Day.
And then I guess to speak about some of the other aspects of the camera experience, photo experience, I would say we didn't share too many even mock-ups of it just yet, because I think it's something we have a lot of ideas about and we want a lot of feedback, and it's been so great to hear what people think. I think at the highest level, we think it's really important. One of the biggest utilities would be being able to send photos from the light phone to a spouse, a colleague, etc. I think that's really one of the big utilities. So you will be able to text photos. I do think we're going to allow you to view photos on the device with some sort of optional gallery, likely. Maybe that's a tool like how our other tools are, but you don't have to have the gallery tool if you want to just see your photos on a different device. How it's going to sync with the dashboard, I think we imagine that's one option. Obviously, probably sending to emails another. We like the idea of being able to offload in a more USB local way, but we haven't 100% figured that out. And there's also the possibility, and maybe not for day one, that it could sync with other photo libraries. So, if you don't want to use our dashboard, maybe the photos could sync to, a Flickr or one of these other cloud photo libraries that you might be more used to. But the exact details of like what size the files are going to be, and even to the focal length, we're estimating around 35 millimeters. It's a little bit of a crop from the sensor, but we'll be testing that, as Kai is saying, through September and October.
Yeah, and if anyone has, you have ideas, feel free to just post on Reddit. We will read it. We will read your feedback. But like at the core of our principles, we'll try to eliminate those distractions of viewing thousands of photos for no reasons or sharing photos for no reason. We'll discourage that. But the final design is TBD, but we have our preliminary thoughts on how it would work.
One thing I've heard some people ask about is, because the OS is primarily black and white, but we are going to allow the camera to use color. The photos themselves have color, but I think it would be a nice homage to the Light Phone 2 to allow a setting to just make the phone entirely black and white. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But those exact nuances, the reasons we haven't been so explicit about them is that they're still a work in progress. So as much as possible, Kai and I are trying not to overpromise, but as much as we hope this Light Phone 3 was a surprise, I hope we can continue to roll out really clever surprises on the features that might be possible with the Light Phone 3.
Yeah.
And then sort of one final camera thing we hear a lot about is, will it be able to view QR codes? And I would say that for now, we haven't fully explored that. And so we're not anticipating that, especially not on launch day, but it's something we look forward to surveying our users and seeing if that's something that we'd find really helpful. Obviously, this would be an incredibly limited capacity. You wouldn't be able to open a full internet browser, but answering the question of could I view a menu at a restaurant on the Light Phone? Maybe.
There might be a way to direct that to. I mean, we don't need to open the whole browser. We could just open the PDF or something image to show the menus or the tickets per se, or you also need QR code for eSIMs activation. That will take that into consideration as well.
Right.
When we looked at the Lift tool, one thing we looked at is that they have a bike option, and a big way people use that is you scan the QR of the bike to unlock the bike, and that's not a distraction in our mind. That would be a utility. We can't guarantee that yet, whether Lyft would even support bikes or anything, but just at the highest level, our thinking is that it could be a utility. So we're open to it, but I would say for day one, it's safe to assume that it will not be able to read QR codes. And for whatever it's worth, I just hope people bring back paper menus.
Agreed on that front. One more thing that, I know you guys have talked about the Wi-Fi assisted modes of the Light Phone 2, but do you think with the new Snapdragon and bands and stuff like that, Wi-Fi calling will probably be a big thing? There was a user talked about this. He used to work works in a old school building, couldn't make it work because of missing texts or calls. So what are you guys seeing on that front?
I would say we hope so, but we haven't been able to fully test that out. But we rely on Android and carriers for that feature. We set it up through the default Android mechanisms, and that's a universal thing that carriers and Android work together on. So in a way, we're hoping that by upgrading to the latest versions and having all of these bands, that reliability and coverage is just better.
The Qualcomm platform we're using is pretty new. It's introduced by Qualcomm in 2022 or earlier 2023. So our assumption, we haven't been able to test it, obviously, but it should be significantly better with better support from Qualcomm since it's a new platform. A lot of the phone's functions are, somewhat controlled by Qualcomm. And that's one of the issue we have to walk through with both Qualcomm, Foxconn, and carriers. Wi-Fi calling is one of them. as well as GPS priming or finding locations. So that's just something that we will walk through.
One of the few updates to the Litephone 2 firmware was a bug in the Qualcomm GPS that they found. So, it's like, hopefully that is one of the ways that the GPS is going to be stronger. We did a couple of other upgrades too, but, it was nothing in our LiteOS code. That's why we felt kind of frustrated by that.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I guess this goes with NFC as well, right? Like you guys are exploring the ability to get a wallet or get a QR code from my flight or something like that, right? Load it into the phone. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how you guys develop that. I mean, I remember when you guys laid out the vision on the Indiegogo back in 2018, 2019, and you said we're open to anything. It's just a matter of like patience, right? And I feel like that's a lot of the things that kind of goes with, a different platform that is you're not just putting an APK, right? Like, you technically could, right? Like, you could put whatever app you want to hear, but you want to make sure that it respects the time and attention of people. And I personally appreciate that.
And
So
ethos too. Like there's a lot of factors we take into consideration with all of these things. And I would say also, like, we're so happy to launch this phone in a drastically different place from an engineering perspective than we were with the Litephone 2. Kai and I launched Litephone 2 as an ambitious project that hadn't yet begun. We had some really high level estimations, and then we had to dive in with our manufacturing partner once we raised the money. And that's when, we realized we couldn't fit USB-C, or the trade-offs didn't make sense, and now we've basically crossed so many of those already in the last, 12 months that we've been working on the engineering and finding screens and everything. So there's a lot less unknowns on the hardware front, if any. Hopefully, we're pretty much going to stay the same, but also on the software, we're not reinventing the wheel. We have the dashboard already built. And so now it's just, how do we keep improving these things for both phones?
Yeah, and also share. I think one of the initial thing we wanted to do is just talk about how the phone's being made and how complicated it is. I think we could probably save this for another conversation, but like showing people how exactly your phone's being made and who is making them. There's hundreds of thousands of people touches your phone. So before it gets to you. Right, and we got to pay every single one of them so that they could have a life live in the different countries, right? So we've been trying to share more about who are the operators, maybe what's the story down the road, and what can we do for them as consumers, right? Like we don't want to pay $800 for your phone, but like how much we pay for iPhone every year, and how much they get paid, all the people that are touching your phone, building the phone. And we also try to be environmental conscious on the material we use as well. And the materials that's recyclable are usually more expensive.
Across the board. Yeah.
So it's just overall more costs for a smaller company like us compared to, Apple, Google, Samsung. It just overall cost is inevitably, if not double, triple the cost for us doing anything.
We're getting the absolute minimum for a lot of things. All these costs. And I think it's something that, like, obviously consumers don't know all of the details of all of these things.
It's understandable.
It totally makes sense. So I understand when people balk at the price tag for a simple phone, but I think, if there was more education and transparency from companies, as consumers, we'd say, how could we expect a cell phone to cost $20? As I see people comment on YouTube, this thing should cost $20. The screen costs so much more than $20.
We joke about doing a tourist trip, inviting our community to go to the factory with us and just see everything firsthand, how it's being made. I think that'll be fascinating at some point.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
so, in case of what anyone's not aware, maybe Jose, you could share the link. We do have a new blog that we launched in conjunction with the Light Phone 3. We've tried to, and we're still migrating some of our older process stuff there, but we plan to use that as a way to have more regular updates and process. I think we love that about crowdfunding. And in the last couple of years, we were using Medium, but just got so disappointed how that became its own weird social media platform. So now we're super happy to have one platform in our website, not paywalled on Indiegogo or, on Medium with ads and other potential things. So we'll share all those as newsletter updates as well. But I think that platform really gives us a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. Last question from the audience, and then I'll give you guys some final details. So as we're nearing the 90-minute mark, but a lot of people will be wanting to collaborate. So I'm going to expand this question. So one of the questions is about a beta program. Like, is there a beta program that people can sign up to? But also, how can people get feedback to you, ideas, requests, or just an idea of being like, hey, can I help you with anything? How can people help in that sense?
Yeah, I think we will do a beta group down the road when the phone, that caveat is if we think the phone is ready. It depends on when the time is. I think we will test it internally and open up to early testers, to get feedback. That's something that we would definitely do.
Interested in at least.
If all
no tangible things.
No tangible timeline yet, but that's something that we would be interested in doing. And in terms of feedback, I think the Reddit is just such a good place.
Email, we definitely
email too.
Email, we all have user feedback channels where we list out ideas and we collect them, and even ideas that will probably never make sense on the Light Phone, we still collect those ideas. And then I think very tangibly, especially because it's exclusive to our pre-order backers, surveying. That way we can really see metrics on okay, everyone wants this tool, but if you had the choice of 3 out of 12, which 3 would you pick? And I think those kinds of questions really help us see what the biggest win for the most users is.
Welcome any feedback.
But basically all the channels. And then I guess, in terms of that incredibly generous offer to help us, which is honestly beyond humbling. I don't even know where to start. I mean, a lot of ways it's almost harder to onboard people to really start helping. We kind of have this really great small size scale, but, we've always been a grassroots growth company. And so I think the number one way our users have helped us is by being out there in the world with their Light Phone and proving that it is possible to live without a smartphone, whether that's just for the weekend or for good. And, I think going forward, we still have this advocate program. Maybe you can share the link to that too, Jose, and any of our existing users can sign up through the dashboard, or if, you'd like to sign up as an early pre-order, we can send an external link. But, instead of paying the platforms that we're so heavily criticizing all of this money for digital ads, we'd so much rather share a small commission back with the users that are out there, literally proving and, being and leading by example that it is possible. And, so many of our new sales, when we talk to them, they say, I saw this guy 8 months ago at the bar and he had this phone and I haven't stopped thinking about it since, and it's you as the users are an inspiration. So I think that's probably the number one way, especially in this time of pre-ordering, that we can be helpful. But, if you have another idea, please reach out. Definitely open ears to any possible ideas, for sure. And just for whatever it's worth, thank you. That's so cool.
Absolutely. All righty. Okay. Thank you for being here, for giving us an hour and a half of your time. There's a lot of other things. I think the only thing that comes to my mind that you guys have talked about as well, and you guys can then close for the next few minutes, is the spam calls, white filtering. I know you guys had talked about that before, that people want that feature. But anything else you guys want the audience to know, this is your time.
Yeah, just I don't know. Thank you all for spending time watching us.
Yeah, 90
talk.
minutes for us talking about something.
You don't need to, but you choose to do that. I appreciate that. And if you pre-order an iPhone 3, we are very grateful, and you're helping us getting this to faster to the shipping day. The more resource we have, the faster we move. We do have investors, but majority of our resource come from user pre-orders and people talking about iPhone and getting others to join the community. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't think I have too much to add other than,
the entire team was really appreciated, not just two of us. We have Eileen, David, Lawrence, Dan, Courtney, Boom.
Conan,
Yeah, I mean, they're all
LJ,
watching
Gus.
what's happening with the communities, and we all feeling really encouraged. And also, thanks, Jose, being sharing what we're doing as well.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
We have no tangible plans, but I do think in the coming year, especially as we get closer, we'd love to start having some more in real life hangs. Obviously, that's pretty limited to New York City region.
Life on party, life on release party. Let's go.
Like, even if like it's not a release party, like it'd be so fun to have a barbecue and like keep this conversation going and not just have our voice on one side of the camera. But I'm trying to read some of these messages, but they're coming in pretty fast.
They are fast.
Small over there. So I'm really sorry. I didn't address anything specific, but you know how to reach us. And
Oh, this sounds great. I mean, I'm not in New York, but just having gatherings and that kind of stuff will be amazing. I know, like in the Discord, people have talked about the release party. They're like ready, pumped to like rent a place. There's a lot of people that are like, "We'll rent a place, don't worry." Like we just want to show up and have fun. But if that were to happen, that'll be amazing. We'll coordinate on the Discord. If you need those links, they're up in there. I'll also put them in the description below, guys. So if you are interested in any of the links, they'll be in the description of this video. And everything has been timestamped. I've been going through the conversation, and roughly at around the minute that we start talking about a topic, I also have put it there. Every 10 minutes, there's usually a new topic that we touched on today. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kai. We really appreciate your time. And see you guys soon.
Talk soon, everyone. Bye-bye.